is the CEO of Cromwell Environmental and Cromwell Solar, which means he's probably trying to make a living in solar. Is that how that translates?
That's true.
Okay. He's our speaker. We look forward to your presentation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It's good to be here. I've got talk. I'm surprised actually with the name economics in the title here that anybody bothered to show up at all. But it's a very, very, very critical part of solar. We ignore the economics. What we do is we relegate it to the good old days, I guess, or the bad old days, if you would, when we would just install solar as demonstration projects and for very, very, very wealthy people. There was one year where I did 3 neurosurgeons' homes. I put solar on 3 neurosurgeons' homes. They all swore that they didn't know the other one. They were all in Kansas City, and the first one put on 3 kilowatts. The second one put on 4 kilowatts, and then the third one put on 5 kilowatts. It's like, it's a little suspicious actually. They all, oh yeah, I know that guy. No, he put solar on. It's like, yeah, you just one-upped him. So the economics are crucial in that, so that we don't have to just rely on neurosurgeons and demonstration projects for schools to have an industry, which is no way to actually have an industry. Go ahead. Just a little bit about my company and about myself.
Focus. It's focus. The tiny, so you can focus.
I should have written larger, I think, but I'll do my best to help you out. That's just a little bit about our company. My background, I came out of KU in the environmental program, biology, ecology, that sort of thing, and went on to get a master's in environmental engineering. And after that, went into to building green homes. I had the development of 100% Energy Star homes, and that was a lot of fun. I learned a heck of a lot doing that. But I wanted to get back a little bit more in the environmental and less in the construction, and I had an opportunity. There was a company called Ramsey Environmental Group that was I started having conversations with, and they were interested in selling. And so I sold my interest in construction and bought my interest in Ramsey. And that was a company that had started doing solar in the 80s, back when that first started, as well as doing some like asbestos and that sort of thing. So that's where I came at it, and I did that, and I bought in 2000. So it's been just about 15 years now since I took over. And I started to talk a little bit about that history. And it was a lot of schools and a lot of those sort of wealthy folks. And really the environmental work that we do in our company, we do a lot of inspections for a lot of mold, actually all across the country, and things like this. And that paid for my solar hobby. And the economics were such that not a whole lot of people could afford to do solar. Well, that shifted a few years back. And about 5 years ago, the solar eclipsed, pardon me for that one, the environmental, and now it's actually it's like 4 times what we do 4 times as much solar as we do environmental work within our company. So that's what we do. Another big part of what we do, besides installing, is advocating, and it was actually a big part of keeping some solar incentive. We're under some serious attack the last couple of years in Topeka, and fended it off successfully the last couple of years. And so that's a big thing that we do. Actually, we work at Cromwell. We're working across the entire state of Kansas, and that's part of our mission is to expand solar, because that strengthens us in Topeka. because I don't know if you guys have ever gone and done any lobbying in Topeka, and you say Lawrence, and then you're going to have a bunch of people from Lawrence stand up and say that they want solar, and don't take our solar away, and they're all from Lawrence. You might as well tell them to go ahead and take it away, because that's all you're going to get. So we're working across all the corners of the state right now, and it's phenomenal. How starved people are out west for solar. They haven't had an opportunity to do it before, and we're out there doing it, and we're charging them no extra for travel because we are committed to doing this, and so that's part of what we do. Thank you. Talking about why people go solar, and there really are three different reasons, and they all three play a certain role. And our focus today is on the economic reasons. The environmental reasons, it's something that a lot of times sort of skip over almost, because everybody knows that solar is good for the environment, although occasionally we hear stories that you'll never get the energy out of it that you put in manufacturing and that kind of thing. It's funny how they don't actually do that calculation with the coal power plants and the infrastructure that goes into that. But there you go. What I would like to say on environmental, it's sort of astonishing. In the last couple of years, we have started doing, when we're doing residential work, we tended to do systems that were around 3 kilowatts. And then it started creeping up. That size just kept creeping up. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that the panels are a heck of a lot more efficient than they were. So we can get right now, having been at this for 15 years now, which is makes me, a real old timer in the solar industry. It's a tough business to stay in for a while. But we can get twice as much juice out of the same roof today as we could 15 years ago. And that's been reflected in the size. So we used to put in an average 3 kilowatts. Now it's about 7.5 kilowatts on a home. And a lot of times we're finding that that's completely adequate to power 100% of someone's needs, which is wonderful. That average system will avoid 500,000 pounds of carbon dioxide over a 20-year warranty period of those panels. That's residential. I'm not talking about some giant system. I'm talking about on the average system that we're putting in on a house will avoid 500,000 pounds of carbon dioxide. So I do like to always mention that because it is phenomenal, and a lot of times we get a little depressed that we can't do anything about global warming, and what can we possibly do? Well, here is something that does work. That's all I'll say on the environmental. We'll talk a lot about the economic here shortly, about cost of conventional energy, the incentives that exist, the payback, and that sort of thing. It's kind of one of the third reason though that people put on solar is kind of funny. It's this impression. And whether it's a business may want to put solar on because then you see it and you think something about that business. This is a green business, this is a progressive business, this is something along those lines. We found actually there's a similar sort of thinking that goes in to some degree on a home too. People want to show other people that this is what they believe in. And this is the same reason somebody buys a Prius or something like this. It is to communicate your values. It's not, I know we're kind of touchy, and we're a little Midwestern too. And so sometimes it's hard for us to say something like that, like, oh, you're just tooting your own horn or something along those lines. Not really. Everything that we do, from the costumes that we wear to the cars that we drive to, everything conveys something about ourselves, and this is yet another way we do that. It's actually fairly important. Conventional electricity. This is actually the Jeffries plant where we get a lot of our power in the state of Kansas for Westar. I'd love to just backdrop anything that we do with conventional power with the coal power plant. we've seen an average of somewhere in the 5 to 10 or plus percent increase in the cost of our electricity for many, many years. It is far, you think about the last couple of years and what the inflation rate has been, it's actually been very low. And during that same time, a 10% energy inflation rate for our conventional electricity has not been unusual. So every year we spend a little bit more of the chunk of change that we have on our electricity, conventional. People years ago, were always asking me, well, how can we possibly get more solar installed? And there's always two ways to go about it. Well, either solar's going to have to get cheaper, or conventional electricity is going to have to get more expensive. And over the last few years, we have experienced both, which is nice. And again, that's probably why we're expanding the way we are in the solar industry currently. Incentives are super important, and a lot of times, when I've been testifying in Topeka, we get a little bit of a hard time. Solar needs incentives, and that's not fair, and we're not in the business of picking winners. This is the sort of thing that we heard a lot. I like to remind them that Westar has an exclusive, protected territory that they can work in, which I would absolutely love it if they just said, okay, Aaron, you're the only one who can install solar in the most populated areas of the state of Kansas. Well, and we're going to guarantee you your profit, because the state actually guarantees Westar makes X amount of profit. They charge you an electric rate based on achieving the profit. It's guaranteed, and that doesn't sound very free market to me. Also, they have a right-of-way. They have their power lines strung across your property, and they pay you $0 for this sort of thing, for the privilege of doing that. When new developments are built, a lot of times people think that Westar will come out and put the power to your house. That's not true. Westar does not do that. The developer takes the power from the pole and runs it all the way to the house. They run it through the development, and they pay for 100% of that. Westar doesn't do that at all. So they'd like you to believe that, but it's just not true. One thing that, but we do have so I get a little touchy, a little defensive, I guess, about solar incentives. I like to mention some of theirs. On the solar side of things, one of the important issues is net metering. And a lot of times people are surprised, oh, we have that in Kansas? We've had that for a number of years now. And again, it was under attack quite a bit in the last couple of years. And we fended it off the first year. The second year it was not going to get fended off, and we compromised, and we have a good system that's working really well for us. What that means, when sunlight hits the roof with solar panels, it's generating electricity. That electricity is DC power. It's direct current. We use AC power, so it's actually converted into AC power in the inverter, which is the computerized brains of the system, and that integrates it with the grid. At this point, anything that the property needs right then is taken from the solar. Anything else that it needs is taken from the grid. If you're producing too much power, you push that power back onto the grid, and it essentially runs your meter backwards. That sort of using that, in essence, really you're using the power company as a gigantic battery. So we don't have battery. We haven't installed a battery system in, it's been about 10 years since I've done a battery system of any size, little tiny off-grid systems, but on a home, we haven't done it forever because we have net metering. It is an incentive. It is something that is helpful to some degree. Net metering and having solar out there on the grid is also helpful for Westar for a variety of reasons that I don't have time to get into, but I'm going to be getting into soon when this, we're going to be once again in Topeka talking about this with the Kansas Corporation Commission this time. But regardless, it is nice for Westar to have PowerPoints, instead of having this sort of one source of power way out, way out, and then they're pulling it to all over town to where it's needed. Instead, if you can imagine these little tiny power plants all over the city, adding in a little bit of power, it actually helps the system out. It makes it more robust. Again, we're going back and forth with that power. So the easiest way to think about it might be you're producing extra power during the day, and at night you turn the lights on and your TV on, you're drawing power in from the grid at night. Well, you've got credits, so it's just going back and forth with it. And again, Kansas, we've got full retail rate. That's super important. Another thing we don't have any state rebates in Kansas. We had a really generous one in Missouri for a number of years that just got yanked out from under us a couple of years back. But we had it for 2 or 3 years. And so primarily what my company did was lots and lots and lots of commercial systems on the Missouri side of the line, because they had a really attractive state rebate. We don't have that here in Kansas and never have. But what we do have is a federal tax credit that's equal to 30% of the total cost of the system. And we've had that for a number of years, and we have that, we're scheduled to have that for the next couple of years, provided that nothing bad happens in Washington. It's kind of hard to say. We definitely hope that nothing too bad happens. They don't have a whole lot of record right now on doing anything, so we have that going for us, I suppose. 30% is a very helpful number for us. It really helps to make solar more competitive. The other thing we've got, and that's the extent for a residential system. For commercial, they take advantage of depreciation. So, anytime a business buys something, it's like counts against your profit. Oh, that's money I didn't make, I put it into my business. Well, this is something that actually lasts. According to the IRS, this ought to be on a 30 to 40 year depreciation schedule, but they let you depreciate it really quickly in 5 years or less, and half of it's depreciated right immediately. This is actually super helpful and can mean somewhere in the 35 to 40%. It's like an incentive equal to 35 or 40%. So for a business, they're paying somewhere in the 30 to 35 cents on the dollar for the solar. The rest of it's going to be returned to them in the form of tax credits of some sort. So essentially, they would either pay the government X amount of money, or instead they put solar on the roof of their building, which helps them out. This is really important. I'm talking about a little bit about alternative financing. And that is super, super critical in developing a solar lease that we've developed. And I'll explain that in a second. But it's important to remember, residential folks, 30% tax credit. But for a commercial person, it's somewhere in the 70% range. So it's very, very substantial.
Could I interrupt and ask, while you're talking about it, how long, for a typical residential home, you install, you said 7.5 watt system?
Kilowatts, yeah.
Kilowatt. What's that cost, and how many credits you get against it, and how long is it before you have paid for the installation?
Sure, and I'm about to hit. I think
okay.
it'll answer that. And it's absolutely important to ask, and we're going to get there. There's two ways of doing that. Either leasing it or buying it. I'm going to go over both a little bit, and we'll hit it. The costs of solar have really plummeted. It's now about a third. The installed cost is around a third of what it was 5 years ago or so. And before that, for the 10 years before that, we always were installing at $10 a watt. $10 a watt. Sometimes a little bit more. That's because the panel itself was somewhere, started out costing us about $7 or more for that for 1 watt. These days, that's less than $1, substantially less than $1. It's more like 75 cents. So it has taken a drastic decrease. One of the big reasons for that is, you know, a lot of people got in the business of making solar panels, and China got into it in a big way. And that helped the entire world had to catch up with them, and that really helped out quite a bit. So we were installing solar $10 a watt. Now we're installing it around $3 a watt. And think about what the dollar has done in that amount of time, and it's gone up substantially. So it's a tremendous difference now from what it was.
That's not the cost of the panel, is it?
The cost of the panel did largely drive the decrease in the installed cost. But the installed cost was $10 a watt for many, many, many years. And now the installed cost, completely done, is around $3 a watt. So a 10 kilowatt system is around $30,000, something like that. Paybacks, we're just asking about paybacks. When you buy a system, our commercial payback is somewhere in the 6 to 8 year range. We've done some larger systems that pay back in around 5 years or so. So, which is actually, that's a heck of a return on investment. 5-year paybacks, like, that's a 20% tax-free return on your investment. That's, that's better than my IRA's done. I can tell you that. For residential, also better than my IRA's done. It's in the 12 to 14 year range. But and we were talking about 25 years plus back in the old days. So this is phenomenal. Also, when you think about, we started doing solar 15 years ago, the price of the residential price for electricity was in the 4.5 cent range, and now we're across Kansas the price varies considerably, but most of Kansas is in the 11.5 cent to 12 cent range. So that's we've gone from less than 5 to well over 10 cents, and that one just keeps getting better. The price of solar stabilized a number of years ago, and actually has slightly gone up, but we've been able to control it with efficiencies in the installation process during that amount of time. So the price has been pretty stable for a while. But see, despite the great payback, there's still a pretty good upfront cost, and it's for a typical house, it's like buying a new car. 20 to 40,000. Either you're buying something a little less, or maybe you're buying something pretty fancy, depending on the size of the system.
Is the system shown on that picture?